And we're live.
So good afternoon. Thank you everyone for joining us for another episode of our Happy Hour series. We're very excited to have Free Reads duo with us today. Oboist Professor Leah Forsyth, who was my former O professor for my undergrad, and saxophonist Dr. Paul Forsyth. Thank you both so much for being here. And let's start off with a little background about each of you. So would you mind sharing a little background information about each of you to begin with?
Yes. Okay, sorry, I was messy with trying to share this on our page. So I am originally from Columbus, Ohio, and I started playing the oboe when I was 10, and I didn't play an instrument before that, well, a wind instrument before that. I just played piano. And so I can't remember if I picked the oboe or if the oboe picked me, but it stuck. And then I went to the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory for my undergrad. And then I did my master's at Florida State. And after that, I played in the West Virginia Symphony for 3 seasons. And then I joined the U.S. Army Field Band for 4 years. And then I ended up here in Louisiana with my husband, who was already here, teaching at Northwestern State University.
I grew up in Tennessee, and went to school in Knoxville at University of Tennessee for my undergrad, and then went to Michigan State for my master's and doctorate. I ended up going to Brevard Music Center for a couple of summers, and that's where we actually met for the first time. And that kind of leads us to how Three Reads became about. But after Michigan State, I was fortunate enough to win the job here at Northwestern State University, and then Leah eventually moved down here. We started as Three Reads duo. We met, like I said, we met at Brevard Music Festival and decided we wanted to play some music together. And that's kind of how everything started. And I think our first performance was in 2005 at a NASA conference in Iowa. We played the Poulenc trio, actually. So with piano, it was Three Reads duo plus piano. I played the bassoon part on tenor saxophone, sorry. And so, yeah, and then so we've been playing since 2005.
That's great, thank you. Could you, so you mentioned how Three Reads duo formed. Could you talk a little bit about your mission and your goals as an ensemble?
Yeah, we, originally our main goal was to play music together, right? You know, so we met and like, well, hey, let's play some music. And we tried to find some repertoire. There wasn't a whole lot out there. There are a few pieces written, but they're really hard to locate and even harder to find people who's actually played them. So we had to get creative, and we just started trying to find a repertoire that we could play. So that's why we did a transcription at first. We started doing other transcriptions, and then we located pieces, and then eventually we started commissioning music. So that led us to our primary mission now, and that's to commission new pieces for this ensemble and get a repertoire, a library for saxophone oboe duos, as well as just inspire other mixed duos to do more what we do. There's always a way to play music together. It doesn't matter what instrument you play. So, you know, trying to inspire that kind of musicianship between people and do something different.
Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, starting new chamber ensembles is always fun, and finding repertoire for them can always be tricky. I mean, we certainly know that with the Reed Quintet. We're lucky that some people before us had already done a good job of commissioning and writing transcriptions for us. So do you guys have any tips for anyone interested in pursuing careers like yours, or do you guys have anything you wish you knew before you got started?
So, careers like ours are actually really interesting because while the bulk of our job is teaching at a university, we both consider ourselves to sort of have a multifaceted career. And I think musicians, unless you're one of the people that lands some great specific job that pays you a whole lot of money, you end up also piecing things together in order to fulfill your creative outlets and also, make a living. So we teach obviously at Northwestern State, and that takes the bulk of our time. But on top of that, we both have other musical outlets aside from even Three Reeds. So I play in regional orchestras around here, Shreveport Symphony, Rapide Symphony. You play a lot of jazz gigs in the area, as well as with the orchestras when they need a saxophone. And then we also, the duo definitely fills a specific creative spot and creative outlet for the both of us, I think, because chamber music for me has always probably been the thing I enjoy the most. I played in quintets since high school, and that's always been one of the ways that I felt like I got the most musical satisfaction. So to be able to do a lot of that to someone that I'm married to and live with is really satisfying. But piecing all those things together can be challenging. It can also be rewarding. People that aren't musicians don't always understand our schedules. So we have, and you guys know that, but oh, I work this night and this morning, and I'm going here for this gig. And obviously none of this is really happening right now, but in a typical scenario. So advice would just be try and find a career where you can have the flexibility to do all the things you want to do. Even if that means that you veer a little bit away from music to earn money to be able to have those creative endeavors, because commissioning music and recording music is unfortunately not cheap.
Yeah.
That's a really good segue into talking about your albums. We've enjoyed listening to Metamorphosis and Signals Cross. What was your experience like working on them, logistically and musically?
I will say lots of adjectives, in a good way, like amazingly musically rewarding. I haven't done a lot of recordings, but the ones I've done, I feel like I'm a better musician when I get done with that recording. There's something about recording, even though it can be kind of sterile unless you're doing it in front of a live audience, and even then it's different. Like, it just puts you, the way you have to practice the music and the way you have to perform it in front of a camera, like you get a different command of the instrument and the music. So we feel like it's been very rewarding, individually as well as an ensemble. And even with Iridium stuff, my saxophone quartet, like both ensembles are way better of an ensemble because we've done these recordings, and we've played through that music and you play through it so many times in a recording session that, you can't not, but then you're nitpicking and then the rehearsals. So it's very musically rewarding. On the other side of that, it's very exhausting too. And so that's the hard part. I always have to take a break. I like spacing out any sort of recording project because I have to, like, I was thinking about it today. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, I could do some recording now. If you'd asked me a year ago, I'd be like, I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for that.
We recorded in 2009, December of 2009. No. December of 2018.
Yeah.
And so a year and a half later, we're finally ready to do another project, maybe.
It's good. Just all the, from, it starts as an idea and then you build the rep for it. Then you find designers, engineers, editors, rehearsal time mixed with actually recording. It always takes longer than I remember, even each time I do it. It always costs a little bit more money than the last time I did it, and that I remember and that I planned for and that I grant for or whatever. And so, but it's always worth it. Even though, I get kind of dark about it sometimes, man, it is totally worth it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've had really similar responses about recording projects from all of our guests, because we try and ask some similar questions throughout. Just a follow-up, do you have any advice for chamber groups who are thinking about recording their first album, either logistically, like money-wise, or practice-wise, preparing for the day, that kind of thing?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would say do it, because it's scary to do it. I don't know anyone that really enjoys listening to themselves play something over and over and over. It makes you really vulnerable. It makes you really dig deep into what you're sounding like. And as musicians, we we take what we sound like so personally. It's part of us. So, but it also really makes you focus on details that you didn't know existed. I mean, we've all been told by teachers, record yourself and listen back. And we may or may not have done that. But when you put a product out there that is out there forever for everyone to listen to, then, you know, it really makes you learn things on a different level, I think. So I would say do it, even though it's scary. And then in terms of funding, there are good outside sources for finding funding for these projects. We are fortunate that our university has professorships that we were able to apply for that funded the majority of both of our recording projects. So shout out to NSU endowed professorships for, you know, helping us with these projects. But I know that there's a lot of grants out there that can help with this. One of Iridium got a grant for one of yours, right?
Yeah, one of the Aaron Copeland grants, because we were doing a recording of New American Music, which those are hard to get. There's the New Music. I'm blanking. There's national grants, but there's also statewide grants too. At some places, we have Louisiana Division of the Arts, who used to have some really nice grant opportunities. They don't have them so much anymore. But you know, you have to get creative and just, you know, you got to find the grants, ask around what other people do, and just start writing some stuff. And that's what has worked for us.
And also I would say to find a recording engineer and producer that has a good recommendation and a good, you know, rep in the business and the industry, because you're gonna have to work with that person. We ended up working with Blue Griffin Records, Sergey Kvitko, who does all of it, but if you're using different people, they're going to be people that you are working with a lot. So to have a good relationship with those people is important as well.
I was wondering, a lot of times creating an album can be really daunting, you know, for chamber groups. And I feel like because of that, it's easy to put it off or just to be too scared to do it. So I was wondering if you could go into a little bit of the exact timeline, like this many years ahead, we decided to do the album. The next year we did this. And then finally we had the album this amount of time later.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's think about our last one, kind of work
backwards.
backwards.
I was going to start with, I had this idea when I first, on the first recording project I did, that I was like, oh, I'm going to get this done. We're going to record, going to edit. And so since then, I've started to realize everything gets a little bit longer. I mean, we haven't done one that has taken, I think we actually did get one out in 9 months one time from when we started recording. So that doesn't include like rehearsing and commissioning pieces, right? So if you want to include that, let's start with like recording. So once we actually had the recording engineer and the recording times, and when we first hit the record button, we chose to do all the recording at once because our recording engineer came to us. So we were paying him, therefore we couldn't do it in like, here, let's do one this week, one that week, or one next month. We had to do it all at once while he was down. And then we let it sit, then the editing process starts. And so depending on how nitpicky you are, how nitpicky your sound engineer is, how fast your sound engineer is, and how backed up he is, that can take anywhere from 3 months to a year to 2 years, you know, it just depends on how many people are involved, how busy everybody is. And then from that step, the mastering and ordering of the CDs, that's the easy part. Once you actually get to that part, it's fine. So I think we're able to get it done in a year, but I'm sure I've left some things out. So.
Well, just fun facts. We recorded for 3 days. I don't know if you said that. So probably like 2 or 3 different sessions. Because as wind players, well, as anything, but especially as wind players, you guys know this, you can't just play for 8 hours. Like you have to have breaks. And I remember like after a day of recording, I had like the most chapped lips I've ever had in my life, because it was like play, listen, stop, play, listen, stop. So like the reed was dry, your lips were dry. It was, yeah. So about 3 days from starting around 8 until, I don't know, 3 in the afternoon with, you know, breaks of recording. And then editing, we tend to go about 3 rounds of editing. So they, you know, the producer sends you copies, You listen, you mark up, say, do you have a better take for this? Go back. I'd love to say that we sat down and did like amazing, one takes of some of these pieces, but that's not really how recordings work.
Well, you don't want them to work that way. It's almost like a puzzle of, wait a minute, I can play that better. I recorded it. Why don't I just use that one since you did it? So it begins what you choose to do. Do you want longer takes, or do you want, since you recorded them, the best, most pristine thing you could possibly have? And it's kind of that, you fight with that the whole editing process. So.
Right. Well, and we've had sort of a philosophical, not issue, but debate a little bit about, live performance versus recording is so different. Live performance, you go out there, you play, you get what you get. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be things that are better than you thought they'd be and worse than you thought they'd be. And with recording, you can make everything the best that you would ever want it to be by doing it over and over. And so we've had this back and forth of, is that really putting my personal playing out there, or is it this weird edited thing that we've put out there? But our recording engineer, he's like, no, I like to think of it as like a totally different kind of art. Like, we're creating this, pieced together perfection of a piece that's a really fun project and puzzle, like you said, to put together. So I think if you think about it in a different way, then it's not like, we're not cheating. We're not saying we recorded this live in one take to do it that way, but it's definitely a really interesting process.
We practice differently. Some recommendations on, I don't know, I would like to do a recording project where I didn't do it all in like 3 days. I think all of mine I've done in short spans where I did one piece a month, or if I was near that kind of facilities, I would like to try that. I might actually enjoy the recording process a little more. I don't know, maybe not. But that also, might spread the project out over long periods of time. I think, but we practice differently. We practice in smaller chunks to get perfection right, because we know we don't have to do whole takes in recording session. It's a different type of endurance. So, which is good and bad, so we practice differently and
listening for minutia too. I know that the one thing that we noticed when we started practicing and listening back to ourselves, even on, just takes that we did ahead of time or the professional takes, is that to have an entrance that is completely together is really difficult.
When the sound engineer can pull up the sound file on his screen, blow it up, and you'd be like, "Oh, that's not together."
We're like, no, we
it
played
sounds
it
totally
together,
but it's not.
Together. So practicing those kinds of things was really different than we'd had to do before.
Definitely, there's so many factors too. It's what a process, but definitely worth it in the end for that final product.
You mentioned the difference between live performance and recording, and how, there's pros and cons of both. Could you talk a little bit about any tips you have for combating that sort of red light effect in, when you're recording, how, things that were easy all of a sudden are not so easy?
I mean, I really think a lot of that, this is going to sound redundant because, as music students, you all know this, but is the preparation ahead of time. We would practice and say, okay, that part is going to give us problems. We're going to have extra trouble with that. And so trying to work out those things ahead of time so that it didn't take so long and we weren't so freaked out within the recording session definitely helped.
Right. But when it does, I'm trying to think of things we've done. One is you say, let's come back to that. That is, if it starts to get frustrating and it's not getting, you can do one of two things. You can rehearse it, like turn everything off, and then of course, if you have a good sound engineer, he doesn't actually turn it off, because when you're rehearsing, you will probably play it very well. And so then he's like, hey, I didn't turn it off. Let's use that one, that kind of idea. Or you just come back to it, not necessarily the next day. You wait an hour or take a break. The break is huge too. Like, hey, everybody take 5, and then you come back, and everybody always sounds better after a break. They're a little more refreshed. So I think those are the things that have helped us the most in that regard. You kind of figure out what you need individually too. Like, I mean, we got or the first quartet CD we did, there were many arguments, not like heated. We weren't like fighting, like, but
cuffs.
But I mean, there's some pretty, like, you get pretty stressed out, and it's frustrating, but then you learn how to work with each other. And that's the other dynamic of dealing with that too. You're worried about how they're playing, and why does he keep screwing up? Why does she keep screwing up? Why am I always playing it perfect and they never do? And it's like, oh, you got to forget about all that.
Great, thank you.
Could you guys talk a little bit about your process for commissioning new works? In terms of just finding composers who, write really well for this type of ensemble, and any sort of, issues you faced, whether, I know as a saxophonist, I always tend to be very conscious of not overpowering, other woodwinds. Could you just talk a little bit about that and, how that's been as your ensemble has kind of grown?
Yeah. A lot of the repertoire that we initially composed was commissioned, sorry, I'm not a composer, was from composers that you knew sort of through the saxophone composition world. No surprise that as an oboist, I was not as familiar with new music before we started commissioning new music. I mean, oboists have new music that we perform, but not as willingly or as excitedly as saxophonists tend to do it. So that's been a really great thing that has come out of this, is my appreciation and love for new music. I was I'm still pretty square, but I was a very square oboist 15 years ago. I want to play, the greats. I want to play this. And I still love that stuff, but the new stuff is great too, because I get to make it my own, especially the commissions. So the first few pieces that we commissioned were from friends and
people,
saxophone composers
who had also done chamber works. That was the other thing. It wasn't just like, hey, I love this person's music, let's get them. It was Marcus Moroni has a great saxophone clarinet duo, and I was like, let's get him to commission, let's write something. Greg Wanamaker has arguably the clarinet saxophone duo that everybody plays. So I was like, let's commission him to do something, people that were successful with duos. So that's where it started.
And then as we did a little bit more, we now have Alyssa Morris wrote us a duo piece, and a lot of people know her music now, especially in the oboe world. And so veering more towards we were like, okay, now we need to get a more oboe-y composer in there. And now we'd like to actually start commissioning works that include piano now too, because we have a friend and colleague we love playing with, and that just adds another element to our repertoire and to the sound that we can achieve. But commissioning works too costs money. So same thing as recording, professorships that allowed us to do that through our university, as well as our own funds that we used to commission work. Sometimes money that we've made from selling our CDs, we've just put into a fund to then circulate back into commissioning works.
We also started with composers we had already had a relationship with, or one of us had. That way, like, hey, maybe, we're limited on funds. What do you think of this? And you can, do it a shorter work, but, would help us to get that started. I was actually, before we even commissioned anything, I had already sent emails to Greg Wanamaker about what we were trying to do. And he gave me some advice on, what he recommended. He's like, he said, get a grant. He basically told me to do what we did. I don't think we did it because of what he said. We were going to do it anyway, but that was his recommendation. Find a grant and just get a bunch of things written. So he just was willing to be a part of that.
Okay, thank you so much. So moving on to our next question. So you guys have performed in very important conferences such as NASA, IDRS, and the World Saxophone Congress. So what has your favorite conference experience been so far, and how important do you think it is for young musicians to get involved in these kind of conferences?
We love to travel, so it's kind of hard to say the favorite, because the favorites really are the ones where we get to go really cool and far away places, So getting to perform in Croatia, getting to perform in Scotland at St. Andrews. We've also commissioned new pieces at those by well-respected composers, so we really like those. But the other side of that, NASA conference in 2018 in Cincinnati, we actually got to play in front of a packed house, which doesn't happen at conferences normally. You know, you can have anywhere from 5 to 20 people there. There were probably, I don't even know, 200 to 300 people in that audience, because we were on a good program. There were interesting performances around us.
No, it's because we are so
and we're
famous
awesome.
that everybody just really wanted to come to our performance.
So that was a great conference. You don't often get to play for that kind of audience, so we enjoyed that. So those are probably our favorites. We like traveling. I think it's really important. I think when I went to Michigan State for my master's, that's when I first was even made aware of these of NASA. Like I wasn't exposed to that as an undergrad, unfortunately. And as soon as I went there, I feel like I was changed as a student and what I wanted to do. You're able to network with people from all over. Obviously, the level of performances and the amount of performances and just different things you can see. I think for all ages, young musicians too, to really, I tell my students all the time, I'm trying to get my students to go because, it's here in Natchitoches, we're a little bit isolated. So getting to live performances is challenging that don't come through the university. So these conferences are huge. They get to see their, mentors and heroes live in person. I think it's a great opportunity that shouldn't, every chance you have to go to things like that.
I think applying to play at them is great, but even just going is great, especially for young students. I was very fortunate that my high school oboe teacher took me in high school to the IDRS conference that was held in Madison, Wisconsin, with like a group of her students. And it was like mind blowing because I got to see these performers I had only, heard on CDs before. And that was sort of a turning point. Like, oh my gosh, I think I really want to do that. I think I want this to be my life. So I'm really fortunate to have had that experience. I think that's important.
I feel like conferences are a really good opportunity to like step into the professional world while you're still a student, which I feel like we should all be doing, right? There's no like, I graduated today, so I'm a professional now. It's like we should be that all the time. And conferences are so great because we can just network with students, colleagues, teachers alike, and just create these lasting connections.
Yes, absolutely. Networking is huge and can be intimidating, but you never know who you might be in line getting coffee next to, and then that ends up being someone who writes you a piece of music or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to move on to ask about your teaching careers and how you balance those with your chamber music career and how they feed off of each other and how you split the time between the two, as well as any other solo orchestral pursuits.
Sure. So with a teaching job, we're fortunate to have summers where we're not having to teach all day, every day. I mean, people think teachers don't work in the summer, and we all know that isn't true. But so that gives us some time to do some other creative outlets. But in order to balance everything, I'd have to actually throw in like life balance in there too. Because if I kind of break up my, I've got my teaching, I've got my performing, I've got my family, and I've got myself. And so all four of those things kind of have to have some sort of balance, which it's a mythical balance. There's no like everybody can do it all and be perfectly balanced, but to try and do things that fulfill each one of those blocks, I think is really important. We have a 5-year-old too. And so when he came into our lives, that changed the picture dramatically because I couldn't just say, hey, I'm going to go practice from 9 to 11 at night anymore. It didn't really work like that. So we have to be pretty diligent about, okay, I'm going to do this at this time and this at this time. And also we try and block out in our own teaching schedules about an hour a week where we can insert a chamber rehearsal if we need to. And that's really helpful. I make lots of lists. I have a whole book of lists.
I just use the app on the phone, but I'm a list maker too. So.
He should probably talk more about his like diligence in scheduling and practicing, because I'm the one that'll be like, oh, I can do that a little bit later, and I do still do it. I just move things around a little bit. He's better at. I said I'm going to practice at 9:34 a.m. and I'm going to go practice at 9:34 a.m. But I think just trying to take care of yourself so that you feel good and you can get it all done, and then trying to, be organized about your time. And that, again, in the past 5 years has really changed a lot for us.
We kind of do one thing a semester, one project a semester. And that's the other thing. It's not like we're doing, it depends. There might be local things. So we'll do a performance here at NSU 1 week. And then the next month is, I should say, we have one big project a semester. Whether it's a tour, whether it's a recording, whether it's traveling somewhere just for a master class. And so we do one thing kind of per semester. And then there might be some little things intermixed with that, with like local, performing on a chamber music series in Alexandria, which is an hour south of here, things like that. So I think that's how we can kind of balance it. Long as we're going to do that this semester. Okay, that's too big. Let's put that in spring. We have time for that. And we just kind of budget it that way.
I think too, the art of saying no has had to have a role in our lives. Again, not before all this most recent madness, but when we were younger in our careers, I felt like I had to say yes to every opportunity that was given to me. Every single orchestra concert, every performance, every student, everything. And the older I've gotten and the more involved in the industry and that I've gotten, now I have to look at the big picture and say, okay, I can't play 4 recitals and play 2 orchestra concerts and go to my son's 3 baseball games and do all this. I can't do all of it and then still be a sane person. So I think everybody kind of needs to learn the threshold of what they can do and learn the art of saying no also, which sounds sort of backwards to getting your career further, but I think it's always better to put a good product out there than to overstretch yourself and not be able to do all those things.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the art of saying no is certainly something that I am working on right now as well.
We all are.
And I feel both of you. I'm a list maker too. I have like books of lists. So.
Oh, I love lists.
Yeah, me too. So kind of moving on to a more fun question. Do you have any musical experiences that stand out as being highlight reel worthy? Or what has been your favorite musical memory so far?
Want to go?
Sure. My highlight, it's not necessarily a 3 Reeds highlight. Probably my individual highlight would be, I think, Iridium, my saxophone quartet recorded and commissioned a piece from David Maslanka, a saxophone concerto for wind ensemble. So getting to perform that and record that with him in person during a long week was really special. That was really cool. Definitely probably my highlight of my career anyway. So, and then getting to play Mio Creation du Monde with the Shreveport Symphony, that was really cool too, because that's got a ton of saxophone in it. And I was like, oh, this is fun. They can actually hear me. Do you hear me?
My highlight reel, I got to play with Texarkana Symphony this was, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, the Rodrigo Guitar Concerto, which has a huge English horn solo, which is one of my favorite pieces, with Sharon Isbin. And that was just a really fantastic experience because the soloist, she's amazing, like, kind of like side-eyed me and like nodded like after I was done. And I was like, oh my God, she liked it. And so that was really big. And also my summers my summers at festivals, Brevard in particular, were really formative, and I have lots of really great musical memories from those. I could say I think that I learned as much in a summer musically because that was all you were doing, as I did maybe in a whole school year, because it was just so compact, and you're there with people that are all, you know, on the same trajectory. And also it led me to Florida State and my teacher for my master's, so that was really great. And I also met my husband at Brevard. So, you know, all the things that Brevard brought me.
I was wondering if she's going to mention it. I was like, do I have to bring it up?
So those sort of my highlight reel. And I don't know, together we were talking about what our favorite performances.
Well, we kind of mentioned that with the conference. I think, you know, the conferences, there's a new symposium that has started. It was the International Woodwind Duo Symposium. Now it's just Duo Symposium, International Duo Symposium. The saxophone professor from Sam Houston, Mas Sugihara, and the flute professor at University of Montana have started this. They're a duo. And getting to go to that symposium and, you know, being with like-minded people that respect what we've done a lot, you know, and we enjoy that a lot. And that was there was another one supposed to happen in the spring that got postponed to the fall, and now that one's been canceled too. So, but those have been kind of Three Reeds highlights, being a part of that.
And we've gotten to play, we need to hit up your alma maters still.
Oh yeah.
I've gotten to play at both of my alma maters as the duo, and so that was really
one of my own. We played at one.
Both. Oh yeah, we did play at Tennessee. Yeah. So that was both nerve-wracking and very exciting to play. You know, to play in front of your old teacher as a professional is exciting, and also you feel like a student again.
You mentioned Brevard.
I think we might have lost Bridget.
Lost Bridget a little bit. She's stuck.
But
can shock her.
Oh, you're back, Bridget?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you hear anything that I said?
I just heard Brevard.
Brevard.
Okay, okay, I'll start over. Amy and I both went to Brevard as well. So I was going to ask you.
Me too.
Lara did too, from Brevard, not just meeting each other or just like performance memories, or maybe like a favorite hike or something that you went on while you were there.
You want to do the
yeah, I was actually one of the librarians. I wasn't there as a student, so I was working a little bit, and so the other librarian was Phil Bravo at the time, also a saxophonist. Pat Posey, a saxophonist, was also there on staff. He was the dean of some sort of dean of students. Plus my teacher, Joe Luloff, was teaching it. So we had a lot of saxophonists, and we decided to do a quartet. And then we convinced the wind ensemble director to do Michael Colgrass's Urban Requiem, which was really fun. You know, especially, I mean, I was still a student at the time. I think I just started my DMA, but as a staff member, getting to go on stage and perform a quasi concerto with the wind ensemble was really special. I enjoyed that a lot. I don't remember the names of the hikes though, but there were some really cool
ones. There's like
ones.
Turtleback Falls.
Yeah.
Is cool. I spent 3 different summers there. So I went in 2001 and 2002, and then I went back in 2004, which is the summer between the 2 years of my master's. And thank goodness that I did go back that year. But no, what else? Gosh, it's changed. We went back a few years ago, and there's like lots of new buildings and things that were there. We can't talk about all the things we did at Brevard.
To me, well, I mean, yeah, that was. I mean, it was just to hang out in the network. I mean, we still have friends from those connections, and you know where they teach and what they do. It's like
2 of the oboists that were there that same summer in 2004 were Erica Grimm, who I played in the Army Field Band with, and Tessa Gross Vincent, who plays in the Marine Band. And I've been able to bring both of them in as guest artists and maintain, you know, a friendship that way. But yeah, I joke and say that, just driving up on like the Blue Ridge Parkway and like watching sunset is just like my happy place. So I love that part of the country and have like really awesome memories from going to Brevard.
Yeah, me too. It's so beautiful up there. So with the recent climate, with this whole coronavirus thing, it's definitely shifted a lot of our technology usage. So do you think that the role of technology is changing in the way we make music, and how do you think that will affect future musical pursuits when this is all said and done?
So absolutely, I think that what has happened is going to change the musical environment and the way that we are able to obtain and present music. So 2 weeks ago, we did a virtual recital, which when quarantine started, we had all this ambition. We were like, we're going to do these recitals and we live together, so it's fine. We can play music together. And then like life happened and none of that really happened. Plus, I'm hard pressed to find anyone that has said they've been particularly motivated during quarantine. It's very difficult to like really keep yourself going when we don't have concerts scheduled. We don't have lessons. Well, we do have lessons, but they're different. We don't have recitals that are planned, all these things. So motivation was low. But then about a month ago, we were like, okay, feeling a little bit better. We can do this. And we were able to do a virtual recital at our university where we just performed to no audience, which was very interesting. I think we would probably both say we were a little less nervous than for a normal performance. In a good way. Like yeah. Felt a little bit more relaxed, but also halfway through I was like, wait, there might be like 100 people watching on the internet right now. I have no idea. But that was something that now I was like, okay, that's always accessible to us now, even in a climate when health is no longer as big of a concern. We have that available to us now. And so I think all these things that are happening, Zoom lessons and interviews and all of this, I think while I would prefer to make music with live people in front of me, I think that having these options available is really eye-opening to everybody. And also I've told some of my students that are, wanting to go to graduate school, I said, this is a perfect time to contact people and try and take virtual lessons because everybody's doing it now. And people have more time now in some ways than they did before. There are people aren't teaching at music festivals and things this summer. So, and you don't have to travel to California and New York and Florida to go take lessons with people that you might want to study with down the road. So I think there's definitely good and bad, but to know that all these electronic resources are there, and I don't think we'll use them in the capacity we're currently using them, but that they're there and that it'll be options for everybody to use in the future.
Absolutely. Do you guys have any current projects coming up or anything you're working on during the quarantine that we can get excited about?
We were talking about commissioning recently, and we're going to start. We have lots of ideas, but we just haven't pulled the trigger on anything yet. But we did have projects for the fall that are basically in the works of they're going to be canceled. But like I said, the Duo Symposium has been canceled, postponed. We were supposed to go on tour in Iowa. That I don't think it's officially been canceled, but it's going to be canceled.
Canceled.
So no, we're back to like, all right, we don't have the projects we had been planning on. So now we were talking about it because this is the perfect time to be commissioning works. It'll give composers work as well as we'll have time to practice them. So I think we're going to get on the commissioning things. But so no, we don't have anything specific in the works now, unfortunately, do we?
No, but I think we were talking last night and saying, I think, like I mentioned previously, we'd like to dive into commissioning more works that include piano. Yeah. We like playing duo stuff, but it's a whole different dynamic. We're very portable. We don't have to travel with a piano. There's only two of us. People only have to pay two of us. There's some
One hotel room.
Yeah. there's some definite bonuses there, but we really like playing with the piano. It rounds out the sound. It adds a whole element to, rehearsing and performing. We have a third party there that can break up marital disputes.
We can rest while we're playing. Like, that's the hard part about duos. It's like we're just playing all the time, and my face gets tired.
Yeah. So, but I think that we'd like our next couple commissions to have piano involved. So that's where we're at right now.
Cool. Well, we look forward to that when it comes out. And with that, we'll move to our fun lightning round. How this is going to work is you're going to get 8 questions and you're going to have a minute to answer them. And I'm going to put a big timer on the screen.
Oh, nice.
And so that you can see when the time goes out. So I'm just going to pull that up real quick.
So a minute to answer all 8 questions.
A minute to answer all 8 questions.
I love it.
Oh, okay.
She's like, you have been too long-winded. We are doing this quickly.
All right. So does everyone see the timer?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, we're going to start with you, Leah, and I'm going to ask your questions.
Okay.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go. Name of your pets and their best quality.
I have a dog named Maggie, and she's super snuggly, and a cat named Alex, and she is kind of annoying but cute.
Nice. I had a dog named Maggie as well. Least favorite oboe excerpt.
La Scala di Seta.
Favorite coffee shop.
We don't have good ones here in Natchitoches, so that's tough. There's one in Alexandria that is called Common Grounds.
Favorite college football team.
Florida State.
Woo! Current show you're binge watching.
Schitt's Creek.
Oh my gosh, love it. Favorite beret etude.
Yes.
Did I say that right? Hopefully.
Barrett. Ooh, grand study number 7.
Nice. Favorite fruit.
Strawberries.
And favorite restaurant.
Ooh, Skyline Chili.
Oh.
Nice.
Nice.
Nice. Okay, Amy's gonna take it over now.
All right.
It's hard. This is not my wheelhouse. Thinking fast here.
This first one will be easy. It should be easy. I hope you
I don't know. Don't say that.
right answer to this.
All right, 3, 2, 1, go.
All right. Favorite college football team.
Yeah, University of Tennessee.
Absolutely. Favorite long tone exercise.
Oh, I can't. Oof. Whole notes, crescendo, decrescendo, lasts for 16 bars, 4-bar phrase. I don't have names.
Cool.
I'll send it.
Send it to us, yeah. Favorite standard piece of saxophone music.
Creston Sonata.
Awesome. Last recipe you made.
Oh gosh. I don't remember the last
Blueberry muffins.
recipe I made. I don't know. Shrimp and grits.
Okay. Make and model of your first car.
Ford Ranger.
15
right.
seconds.
Go to outdoor activity.
Oh, golf.
Weirdest extended technique you've ever been asked to employ.
Biting the reed.
Time's up.
Right. And favorite comfort food was the last one.
I'm embarrassed to say what it is.
No, you got it there.
No, okay. Corn chips dipped in sour cream. So like Tostito chips and sour cream.
Okay. Yeah. I can see it.
No apologies.
Nice.
Okay, so it was really fun. Thank you guys so much for being here today. Thank you to our viewers. And we have learned so much and enjoyed having you. And just a reminder for our followers that next week we are interviewing Califax Reed Quintet. So stay tuned out for that. And thank you again, Three Reeds Duo, for being here.
Yeah.
So,
Thank
Thanks
you
so
guys so much.
Thank
This
you.
was really fun.
Have a great day.